Hey everyone, George here. I just wanted to sit down real quick and talk to you about a movie, and oh boy is it going to be a fun one. I want to talk to you about the 1988 John Carpenter film, They Live. This film stars Keith David, Roddy Piper, and Meg Foster. This film was adapted from the short story 8 O'Clock in the Morning, written by Roy Nelson. Okay, so what is this movie about? This movie is about a drifter that comes across a pair of sunglasses that allows them to see through the veil of modern society. And basically that means he sees all like upper and ruling class people of society as aliens. They're actually aliens from another planet. And all the magazines and ads and billboards and such are actually subliminal messages telling people how to behave and conform. Real quick before we get started, I know this movie was made back in 1988, but I must say it, I am going to spoil this movie from beginning to end, top to bottom. So if you haven't seen this movie and you're curious about it, yeah, go watch it. And then come back, sit down, and hear what I have to say about this movie, because it's a fun one. It's a campy one, but it's a very much a smart one. So yeah, go watch it, come back, sit down, and let's have a chat. So why am I recommending this movie? I mean, you know, a lot of people say this movie is quite contemporary and relevant today. This idea that there's like this ruling class and they're aliens and they're telling people how to conform, and there's commercials and advertising telling people how to behave. You know, it's a very satirical movie. It has a lot of social commentary on wealth inequality, Western, or at least United States, like societal structure. Even it talks about consumerism and how consumerism forces people to behave a certain way as well. You know, the whole sequence when he has sunglasses on and he takes his sunglasses off, all the billboards and all the ads and magazines are actually just words that are telling people how to behave. Also, this movie covers media manipulation as well. So, you know, it's basically like television. It kind of goes into like consumer culture and stuff like that, but like television and ads and magazines are telling people how to behave, what to be upset by, what to be happy about. Basically, the people in this world of They Live are incapable or are unaware that they're not thinking for themselves. That's like part of the theme of this movie, is that there's like these elitists, these puppet masters pulling the strings of society, basically telling people or tricking people into thinking they have free will, but they actually don't. They're dictating how they should behave and how they should live their lives. This movie was relevant in the 80s, it was relevant in the 90s, it was relevant in 2000s, 2010s, and even now. Yeah, but this is why I wanted to chat with you about this movie today, because the movie is really fun, but it's also quite smart. You know, it's not just some dumb B-movie. You know, John Carpenter, a lot of it, especially in the 80s, his movies kind of had that B-movie vibe, but in a great way. He's amazing. He's an amazing director. I love John Carpenter films. Don't get offended if I say it has B-movie vibes, but, you know, his movies definitely have a little bit of camp to it, and even though this movie can be campy, it's very smart, it's very biting, very intelligent. You know, it's silly. You know, Roddy Piper is just this big, muscular depiction of like a man in the 1980s where he wakes up and eats ham and eggs every day and, you know, drinks coffee and then whiskey at night. And, you know, he just sort of like saw past the veil of society originally, like without the sunglasses. So it's kind of funny is that like this main character is not like an insider. This main character is someone who's just drifting through life like a drifter, right? And then he comes across the sunglasses and he puts his like muscles to the test. And it's very, you know, it's very 80s fun, macho, manly action movie. Really, it's not really action, but there's a lot of like fun, like manliness in the movie. Like you look at the movies like Predator, which has that great shot where Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers, they're like happy to see each other and doing the hand thing, and then they're like trying to like have an arm wrestle at the same time, like squeeze each other harder. You have that, you have like movies like Rambo, and then you have like a movie like this where it's just Roddy Piper, and then you have a scene with Keith David, who's also like a very manly man, and the movie itself has like this prolonged like fight sequence in a very comical, very fun way. So yeah, the movie is quite relevant, very funny, super campy, and I love camp. And I think this movie has more to tell than you're actually seeing. So this movie has a lot of memorable moments in it. You know, there's that famous line where it's like, I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble gum. Like, how can you not? Like, how can you not enjoy this movie? You know, it's not like some masterpiece, but it really does some smart stuff and some fun stuff like that. So this movie has like some famous scenes in it, and my favorite scene is the comically long fight scene between Roddy Piper and Keith David, where they're just going back and forth in the alleyway, and then you think it's done and it just goes on more and more. How can you watch this movie and then watch Roddy Piper and Keith David just have this like comically back and forth, just punching each other, kicking at each other, like choking each other, throwing each other, hitting each other with objects? How can you watch this like super long sequence and be like, you know what? I don't like this. Like, there may be certain things about this movie you don't like, but I guarantee that this is not one of those, because come on, it's a fun scene. This movie, it was made in 1988. It's part of the whole, you know, the 80s era, right, of cinema, where you'll have like a man, like a macho man, roaming through a city or whatever, and he can just get weapons and beat up people really easily. So there's like scenes when he comes across the aliens, he comes across police officers that are actually aliens, and you know, he can get their weapons and he can like off people very easily. They can move out of the way, but you know, obviously they're set up for the shots. He like blasts people with shotguns and other stuff, or really aliens. He blasts aliens with shotguns and stuff. He doesn't want to hurt people. He wants to hurt the aliens. You know, it's just kind of funny as he's just like slowly moves through the city. You'd think that he would be caught very easily. It's kind of like when you're playing a Grand Theft Auto game where you could just run up to a regular pedestrian or a regular car, just open the car door, pull a person out, and just like do whatever and get into a fight and blow some stuff up, and then get in the car, and then all of a sudden the cops are coming, and all you need is like ride for a little bit, and then it'll just like, you know, the meter will go down, and then you will lose the cops. And it's like that same concept. They'll just don't know where you are. They just don't know where he is after a while. There's a sequence in the movie. So there is a church where was their original headquarters for this group that were, you know, following the aliens, like, you know, like tracking what the aliens were doing and like planning to rebel against the aliens. This group's headquarters was in this old church. This church gets raided, right? Before all the cop cars and police on foot arrive to the church, there is a helicopter right above the church, just hovering above it. You see the person, he's got a rifle in hand, just sitting outside the door of the helicopter while it's overhead, and everyone just leaves. And I don't know, I don't know, was no one paying attention that everyone left? What they should have done is this. There should have been like a lookout person somewhere, and they had like a light flashing, like a bright flashlight, or someone blowing a whistle or something telling, hey, blah, 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 they're coming. And then everyone scatters and leaves, right? And then the second they hide behind like a shed, they don't have to go far, just like a few houses down and hide behind a shed or something, then the helicopter arrives. It's just weird is that the helicopter's there and then they all disperse. And then they act like they didn't even know that they're, oh my God, I don't know where the people are. Yeah, so it just goes into the logic of this movie that it's quite easy to like take down the bad guys. You know, that's just like 80s action movie logic, honestly. So let's talk about Keith David in this movie. I love Keith David. He's great. And his character is a lot of fun. And, you know, he was just a man with a wife and a kid who knew something was going on, but didn't care. He didn't want to know. He just wanted to keep his head down and work. You know, he worked a low-paying job, and he knew something was going on. He didn't know exactly what was going on, right? But he knew there was something strange going on, but he really didn't want to hear any of it. He didn't want to get involved. He just wanted to keep his head down, work, feed his family, and call it a day. It wasn't until Roddy Piper forced him to put the sunglasses on and he saw that everyone were aliens. It was like, whoa! It's hard to ignore it if you see like these crazy aliens walking down the street. He was also the person that was involved in that really fun, long fight sequence where Roddy Piper and Keith David were fighting. So he was just like this man just roaming through society in a very different way. So Roddy Piper was a drifter. He saw society for what it was and basically had trouble conforming into it. And so he was drifting around looking for work and just living and getting by. Keith David was very similar of a man, but he chose a different route. He chose to make a nice nest and make a family and a nice little life inside this world that he also saw that, this world was not, a great world and it was not easy to live in. But he chose to just carve a nice little nest in that world and get by. So it was kind of fun that there were two people quite similar, but they took different paths in life. And of course, they clash together and have a really fun fight sequence. But yeah, it was really fun seeing Roddy Piper and Keith David's character interact with each other and go through this story. Do I like the ending of this film? Yeah, I like it. It's fun. It serves its purpose. It's a bit of a bittersweet ending. The way this movie ends is the headquarters of the resistance is destroyed. Keith David and Roddy Piper have a watch that belongs to the aliens. They are cornered. They activate a doorway that which is a way that aliens move quickly throughout the city. They activate a doorway, like a hole in the floor, and they have no choice. So they activate it, and they jump down into the hole in the floor, and they end up at the TV station. And they meet a homeless man who is a character in the movie earlier in this film, where he just liked sitting down and watching television. He didn't care about anything else going on in the world. All he cared about is what was going on the television. And this guy's wearing a tuxedo. He basically bought into the system. So, so now he's living like a comfortable life. All of a sudden he's wealthy. He's just walking around in a tuxedo. So of course he's wealthy, right? Basically, this guy thinks the two main characters are on the alien side. It's like, oh, welcome aboard, fellas. He said, let me show you around the place. So he's able to just have access to everywhere, which is kind of crazy. These two characters, Keith David and Roddy Piper, look like two 80s action movie stars. They're big and muscular, and everyone's just cool with them, just kind of just roaming around the facility. It's pretty funny. But in the end, Roddy Piper destroys the satellite that is sending some signal out that makes humans not see all the aliens as aliens and all the ads and stuff as subliminal messages. So every main character in this movie dies. Roddy Piper dies, Keith David dies, but Roddy Piper dies destroying the satellite. And then ends with, in a very comical way, where everyone can now see these people as the aliens that they actually are. It's a very fun scene. It really is. So was this movie successful back in the day? Yeah, it made a return. It had a budget of $3 million, and it brought in over $13 million in the box office. It wasn't massive, and critics initially didn't like this movie. But over the years, people have warmed up to this film. They enjoy it. It has some fun camp to it, some great, hilarious scenes to it, and, it has some social commentary that a lot of people talk about even to this day of what's going on in modern society. So this movie was successful then, but not huge. Since that time to now, this movie has gotten a cult following. It is quite relevant today. It works today. It does. You watch the movie, you'll see, it's very dated. It's very silly, very campy, but in a very fun and endearing way. The message behind it definitely resonates today. It covers topics like wealth inequality, social hierarchies in modern society. Also, this movie covers media manipulation as well. So it's quite relevant. It's a very relevant movie. This is why I wanted to sit down and talk to you about this movie, is Specifically because you can sit down now and, look past the 80s camp and that this is, it's clearly a movie made in the 80s. And let's say you ignore all that and just see the story for what it is. You're like, this is quite telling. This is very much a contemporary movie that was made just yesterday. Maybe not that intense, but it definitely holds up today. And you will watch it and you'll be like, it will make you think very much about how society is structured today. So that's the 1988 John Carpenter film, They Live. Yeah, it's a fun one, it's a campy one, but it's also a smart one. And I think it deserves your second viewing, and if you haven't seen it already, it deserves your first viewing. So I recommend that you go and watch this movie right now. Bye.